So we need to talk about this Giorgia Meloni. 45-year-old Giorgia Meloni. They're calling her the fascist, the rise of fascism. She's going to destroy Europe and democracy, and she's going to destroy the world. She did like Mussolini. She did think Mussolini, everything he did was in the name of Italy. Mussolini is the father of fascism. She still uses the symbol of Mussolini. She hasn't backed away from the... Apparently she's saying she's not a fascist. Meloni, Giorgia Meloni. She's criticizing the LGBT lobby. She's the one that says that she's a woman and a Christian and Italian and La Familia. La Familia. She's the one that's yelling in Italian. It looks like Hitler, but it's in Italian. So should we be worried? Let's look at some of the healthcare emergency. Let's take a look at Italy's social welfare programs. So they got universal health care. They have they got unemployment, they got childbirth allowance, family insurance services, so maternity, paternity, there's driver's licenses, there's schools, public housing tenders, social services, accidents on the job. They have workman's compensation, illness and invalidity, and pensions. So old age pensions, Social Security, disability welfare benefits, disability benefits. And if you're a foreigner, you can apply for workman's comp. You can also family reunification. There's welfare benefits. There's health care. I already mentioned universal health care. We're going to focus on the health care. So if you're in Europe, if you're in Italy and you're sick, just go to the hospital and you'll be taken care of. So that means even if Giorgia Meloni is, very right-wing, until she says she's going to dismantle the healthcare system of Italy, she is to the left of America. She is more liberal than America because Italy has universal health care. How long has Italy had universal health care? Let's take a look at that. So I want to know from Giorgia Meloni, how many of these social programs is she going to get rid of? The maternity leave, is she going to get rid of that? Is she going to they got vacation days, like 2 weeks vacation too. They got a big old fat fucking social safety net. They got a big old fat fucking social safety net. So she's going after the gay people, which, my God, they've been going after gay people ever since I've been, alive. And it feels a little too late. Let's see, universal health care, Italy. It's rated one of the best in the world. Almost all patient costs are covered. The Italian state runs a universal public health care system since 1978. Healthcare is provided to all citizens and residents by a mixed public-private system. So there you go. Since 1978, Italy's had universal health care in addition to a whole fucking slew of other social programs. Is Giorgia Meloni going to get rid of any of those programs? Because if she's going to keep all that socialism, all that, right-wing welfare, nanny state, communist, socialism, whatever, left-wing, if she's going to keep all that, then she is so much more liberal, so much more left-wing. She's basically, compared to America, she's our FDR. Compared to America, she's Bernie Sanders. In America, Giorgia Meloni is like Otto von Bismarck, super duper progressive. Now let's just read some notes here. Giorgia Meloni. She seems to appear to the great replacement theory. She defends far-right leaders like Hungary's Viktor Orban. She says yes to natural families, no to the LGBT lobby, yes to sexual identity, no to gender ideology, yes to the culture of life, no to the abyss of death. That's Giorgia Meloni, she said to supporters of Spain's rightist Vox party in June. As a teen campaigning for the party, she praised Mussolini, saying he was a good politician. Everything he did for Italy, Giorgia Meloni said in resurfaced video footage. Giorgia Meloni has led the Fratelli d'Italia, which is the Brothers of Italy, since 2014. So her political party is the Brothers of Italy. Even though she is the first female prime minister of Italy, feminists in Italy are not happy or excited about her because she represents everything they don't. For better or worse. Probably for the worse. Giorgia Meloni has already plans to build a conservative coalition, includes two smaller parties, the far-right Lega, the League, which has built a base with its anti-immigrant rhetoric, and Forza Italia, a center-right party led by former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi. Based on this morning's results so far, Giorgia Meloni will usher in Italy's first far-right government since the end of World War II. Giorgia Meloni stressed she isn't homophobic. She firmly believes that the state must try to preserve adoption for a man and a woman so that they'll take care of the weakest. Giorgia Meloni told the Washington Post in September she thinks adoption by a heteronormative couple is what's best for a child who's unlucky. She submitted an amendment to a law that would extend a ban on surrogacy in the country to Italians who seek the method abroad while a member of parliament. The measure has not yet been approved. Her party does not support bringing forward legislation that would enshrine same-sex marriage into Italy's civil code. The right-wing leader in her party opposed broadening rights for trans, non-binary, and intersex folks in Italy. Giorgia Meloni's sharp rise. Her party got 26% of the vote 2022 compared to 4% 4 years ago, 2018. Other right-wing parties gaining power in Europe. Poland's Law and Justice Party, Hungary's Hungarian Civic Alliance. Those are notable examples. Sweden, too, far-right party looks poised to lead a government coalition. Typically, midterm elections, the Democrats are headed towards a bloodbath in November. And so for the Democrats, they can't afford to fuck around with people's voter registration. The Democrats cannot afford to fuck around with not delivering. Not for these midterms. It's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a shellacking. It's going to be bad for the Democrats because people are pissed off and people are going to reject those in power right now. And if the only ones that they got left to vote for are the Republicans, and that's what they're going to do. Together with the right-wing coalition, Giorgia Meloni received almost 44% of the overall vote, enough to form a government. So her famous saying is, I'm Georgia, I'm woman, I am mother, I am Italian, I am Christian. You're Georgia, Georgia on my mind. 2019 speech by Meloni promises to defend God, family, and nation. So that's interesting. Homeland, God, family, nation. Meloni calls for a full naval blockade of Africa to stop migrants coming to Europe. Jesus says in St. Matthew's Gospel, come unto me, all ye that are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Yes to natural families, no to the LGBT lobby, she says. So that's really bad. She's against gay marriage. Apparently there's civil unions in Italy, But the gay folks are not going to be allowed to get married, and they're not going to be allowed to adopt. She's also against euthanasia and abortion. Euthanasia, people should have a right to, abortion. For the first 3 to 6 months, it should be okay. Anti-legalized marijuana. She's not for freedom. This is not an Italian gangster. She's Italy. This isn't Italy. This isn't Italy. This isn't fucking Sopranos. This isn't goddamn. This ain't Rome. These ain't Roman conquerors. This ain't fucking Sopranos. It's not even pizza. She doesn't even talk about pizza. She doesn't even think to brag about Italy's greatest export ever. If it wasn't for marijuana, the Italian gangsters couldn't have made it. Okay, so what? So, I also heard the first thing she did was cut UBI payments to the poor. The very first thing she did was cut UBI payments to the poor. Martin Luther King liked UBI, but so did Milton Friedman, Mr. American Capitalist. So her cutting UBI payments to the poor is pretty sick. She's not a Christian. She's anti-Christian. And she's anti-capitalism. She don't know what the fuck she's doing. She may destroy Italy. She may destroy all of Italy. That's, people are kind of sick of you got trans rights, but not special privileges. So we all got equal rights, goddammit. Pro-NATO and Ukraine, that's interesting. Giorgia Meloni, they say she likes Putin. Watch out for that, But for right now, she doesn't want Putin in Ukraine. She's pro-NATO, pro-Ukraine. She's also a Lord of the Rings super fan. She's criticized Israel's massacres on Gaza. Some Italian Jews are willing to overlook the fact that far-right leaders are intrinsically fascist, focusing on their party's champion of Israel. To these voters, the important thing is that the far-right parties say that they're unconditionally aligned with Israel. And since Giorgia Meloni says she's fully committed to Israel's security, Israel represents the only fully fledged democracy in the broader Middle East. We defend without any reservations its right to exist and live in security, Giorgia Meloni told Israel Hayom. I believe that the existence of the state of Israel is vital, and the brothers of Italy will make every effort to invest in greater cooperation between our countries. Now, she's praised Hezbollah in 2014 for defending Christians in Lebanon. She also lamented another massacre of children in Gaza that year on social media. So she criticizes Israel, recognizes its right to exist, will protect Israel, but criticizes Israel. They say she talks of ethnic substitution and the need to defend our genetic code. She denounces George Soros as the enemy, speaks of her resistance to becoming a perfect slave at the mercy of financial speculators. They're trying to say that it's a dog whistle for anti-Semitism. I'm not for sure if that's the case or not. You do have wealthy oligarchs and plutocrats who look at the rest of us as a bunch of fucking consumer slaves. So financial speculators, the wealthy, the rich, the elite, however you want to put it. Giorgia Meloni says, without familiar religious and national identity, we become perfect consumer slaves. We kind of do. If we don't have any of our own identity, then if we don't stand up for something, we'll fall for anything. G.K. Chesterton was a Zionist, and she quotes G.K. Chesterton. So Giorgia Meloni loves this. G.K. Chesterton, at the end of 2019, she's sitting there quoting him. He says getting Jews to go to Israel was a good way to getting rid of them from Europe. He believed that 19th century capitalism was essentially usury, hence anti-Christian. The Brothers of Italy, whose motto is God, Homeland, Family, espouses firmly conservative, anti-immigrant, Eurosceptic views. Giorgia Meloni's rallying cry during the electoral campaign became a quote from a speech. She says, "I'm woman, I'm mother, I'm a Christian." Her party opposes same-sex marriage and adoptions, abortion, euthanasia, and the legalization of cannabis. Giorgia Meloni is poised to become Italy's first female prime minister. Let's see here. The League of Matteo Salvini winning 9%. Forza Italia, Silvio Berlusconi. If we're called to govern this nation, we will do it for everyone. We will do it for all Italians, and we will do it with the aim of uniting the people, Giorgia Meloni said. Italy chose us. We will not betray it, as we never have. Giorgia Meloni is the chair of the right-wing European Conservative and Reformist group in the European Parliament, which gathers her Brothers of Italy, Poland's Law and Justice Party, Spain's Vox, and the Sweden Democrats, which just won big in elections. They're on a platform of cracking down on crime and limiting immigration. The trend that emerged 2 weeks ago in Sweden is confirmed in Italy, says the Democratic Party leader Enrico Letta, calling Monday a sad day for Italy, for Europe. We expect dark days. We fought in every way to avoid this outcome. Giorgia Meloni's party has fought against legislation that classify violence against LGBTQ plus people as a hate crime. They want to block ratification, misogyny, Berlusconi, Salvini have ties to Putin. While both have distanced themselves from his invasion, Salvini has warned that sanctions against Moscow are hurting Italian industry, and even Berlusconi has excused Putin's invasion as foisted on him by pro-Moscow separatists in the Donbass. A bigger shift, and one likely to cause friction with European powers, will probably come over migration. Giorgia Meloni has called for a naval blockade to prevent migrant boats from leaving North African shores, and has proposed screening potential asylum seekers in Africa before they set out on smugglers' boats to Europe. Giorgia Meloni proudly touts her roots as a militant in the neo-fascist Italian social movement, which formed in the aftermath of World War II with the remnants of Mussolini's fascist supporters. Meloni joined in 1992 as a 15-year-old. During the campaign, Giorgia Meloni was forced to respond after the Democrats used her party's origins to paint Meloni as a danger to democracy. The Italian right has handed fascism over to history for decades now, unambiguously condemning the suppression of democracy and the ignominious anti-Jewish law, she said in a multilingual campaign video. Giorgia Meloni has officially won the election for Italy's next prime minister. She's now poised to be the first female prime minister in the country's history. What does the election mean for Europe? Europe is seeing a surge in far-right movements. Sweden last month elected a party with roots in neo-Nazism, while nationalist Marine Le Pen nearly defeated the centrist Emmanuel Macron in France. If Giorgia Meloni were to come to power, it could push Italy into the continent's so-called illiberal bloc, along with Hungary and Poland, where the EU warns democracy is receding. The EU has chastised the two countries for attempting to undermine the strength of the 27-nation union by putting their domestic policies ahead of shared European law. Emmanuel Macron has also called on the EU to stop the rise of anti-liberal conservatism, which he believes is a threat to the bloc's democratic standards. Giorgia Meloni has in the past applauded Hungary's autocratic president and Le Pen, but recently, to appeal to more centrist voters, Giorgia Meloni has attempted to soften her stance, pledging that under her leadership, Italy would not take an authoritarian turn. If Giorgia Meloni wins, which early polling says is likely, the number of Italian Jews is estimated to be around 24,000, the majority of whom are concentrated in the communities of Rome and Milan. The memory of the Shoah, The responsibilities of fascism and the existence of Israel as a light among the nations are one and the same. They are not isolated issues that can be discussed as if the rest were superfluous or could be denied. Di Segni wrote, if our values are neglected due to the lack of interest or to benefit the individual's interest or the interest of a specific party, the risk is really high. It will not be enough to say, let's see and let's hope. Fratelli party logo with flame and stylized Dolce coffin. What about the fascist legacy of the party whose logo still features a flame rising from the stylized tomb of Mussolini? Giorgia Meloni does her best to play down the explosiveness of this legacy deliberately chosen at the time of the party's founding. How reliable is it? Giovanni Orsini, professor of modern history, Lewis in Rome, has recently pointed out the many post-fascist party formations since the war. Pointed out today, Meloni's party belongs to the mainstream of European right. Frankly, I think the question of the return of fascism is complete nonsense, says Orsino. Giorgia Meloni's party bemoans the chronically low birth rate in Italy, wants to implement pro-natalist policies. The prospect of technocratic policy curing low birth rates is dubious, but if incentivizing social behavior is now a fascistic endeavor, what does that say about the left's agenda? Giorgia Meloni defends Europe's Christian identity. The American left acts like the mere mention of Christian is xenophobic and fascistic. People get furious when this atheist points out nearly every Christian majority nation in the world can boast of democratic institutions, high levels of freedom, with a few exceptions of a few places like Russia. While most non-Christian majority nations can't, there are thorny ideological and historical reasons for this reality. But reality is, when Europe embraces a competing faith, be it secular universalism, multiculturalism, communism, fascism, things tend to go poorly. I don't know who's writing all this. Meloni opposes gay marriage, which isn't legally recognized in Italy. There are same-sex civil unions, which offer gay couples nearly the same legal protections as marriage does, which are laws that Giorgia Meloni does not propose overturning. Every story mentions the protection of life as an evident sign of democratic backsliding. It took some digging to ferret out the official right-wing coalition's position. Outside nebulous language about life, Giorgia Meloni promises to fund alternatives to abortion, using state power to shut down pregnancy centers and looking the other way when political terrorists firebomb them is quite fascisty, offering pregnant women the means to keep their babies, not so much. Giorgia Meloni opposes illegal immigration. Giorgia Meloni is a moderate European skeptic, pro-NATO, supports the West military backing of Ukraine and closer relations with Taiwan. Giorgia Meloni is a critic of wokeness and the idea of malleable gender identity, the position of basically the entire world until just a few minutes ago. Giorgia Meloni's party uses the tricolor flame logo. They've been denounced as fascist, though Giorgia said Italy had handed fascism over to history for decades now. Gianfranco Fini visited Vad Vashem in Israel, called Mussolini's regime absolute evil. Meloni refused to vaccinate her daughter, arguing that the probability of someone aged 0 to 19 dying from COVID-19 is the same as being struck and killed by lightning. And to be fair, it's actually lower. Giorgia Meloni is, believe it or not, a fan of Tolkien. Attended a Hobbit camp in 1993 when she was 16. In Italy, the New York Times explains in a 1,500-word deep dive that Lord of the Rings has for a half-century been a central pillar Rome, low taxes, European Union, support for Ukraine. I'll just read this paragraph. In Economy and Social, the program says Italy should make full use of the almost £200 billion, $193 billion has been earmarked under the EU's post-pandemic recovery plan. But it talks about changing the agreement with Brussels, which requires a major structural reforms in return for the money. It says there's changed conditions, noting rising cost of energy and raw materials, calls for a reduction in the tax burden for families, businesses, self-employed, including a flat tax for the latter. The citizens' income and unemployment benefit introduced under the populist five-star movement will be abolished. The program also calls for a reevaluation of the minimum pension, social and disability payments as inflation soars. There's also a promise to protect the purchasing power of families, workers, and pensions, and reduce VAT, value-added tax on energy products. Institutions. The coalition wants to change the constitution to ensure election by universal suffrage of the president, Italy's head of state, who is currently chosen by parliament. Interesting. The program includes a reference to move towards more regional autonomy, a key issue for Salvini's League. It also calls for reform of the justice system to ensure the reasonable duration of trials.